one of them. Still, his voice came out an octave higher than he'd have wished it to. "I know you're in here," he said, even though he could as well have been talking to dust and old walls. "Come out! Let's talk things through. You know, like civilized people." In the black void around him, something scraped against stone. It was a brief, silent noise, like that of a shoe gently moving against a damp floor, but in the near-perfect silence it echoed louder than a scream. Jake's heart picked up the pace of its march, and he dove into the room to his right, intent on finding the source of the sound. It could have been mice, but Jake wouldn't take any chances. Stepping inside, he raised his flashlight to see the entire chamber and recoiled so rapidly he stumbled over the threshold. 3 pairs of empty eye sockets stared back at him from naked skulls. 2 of them, one perched atop a barrel and one part of an entire skeleton locked inside a dog cage. Contrasted with the genteel decor and the way the third corpse calmly reclined in a chair, clad in what was remaining of an old-fashioned gown. With blood rushing to his head, Jake stared at the scene in complete silence, half expecting one of the dead bodies to raise their hand in greeting. But nothing happened. It took Jake minutes to unglue his back from the wall and breathe normally again. Goosebumps crawled all over his arms, even under his hoodie. When he finally moved across the dust-filled room, the floor whined under him as if it didn't welcome his presence. Well, tough shit, because he was sure that creeper Elliot was hiding somewhere in the spooky corridors, and Jake would be the one to catch him red-handed. The entrance to the old cellar was concealed behind a moving wooden panel on the wall. So maybe there were more passages none of the patched knew of. Jake rushed over to the wall in clouds of dust coming off the carpet, and he placed his hands against the textured wallpaper that peeled off the damp walls. He had the distinct sense of being watched, as if the seated corpse followed his every step with her empty eye sockets. He'd dealt with dead bodies before, but he was still not exactly used to them. Realizing that we were all sacks of meat moved by brains had never sat all that well with Jake. And yet after the first death he'd witnessed, a certain understanding settled in him. No one was invincible. No one was immortal. Even the strongest man could, and would, end up in the dirt one day. Even him. As Jake's fingers traced the wallpaper, another creak from the floor made him pay more attention to the movement in the dark. Could it have been a rat? A cockroach? Step by step, he illuminated each corner with the flashlight. Whenever he shifted, shadows lengthened in the yellow glow, creating the illusion of movement. If anything, the beam made the space creepier. Exactly the kind of place a guy like Elliot would love. Why an amazing man like Knight gave that guy the time of day remained a mystery, because Elliot hadn't earned someone so handsome and kind. No, Knight deserved to be cherished and doted on. Jake scowled when the thick fabric sank under his feet with a damp sound, as if he were stepping on moss, but a small irregularity under his foot made Jake stop. Ignoring the 3 skeletons watching him in silence, he moved his boot over whatever was underneath the carpet. The thing was hard to the touch and shaped like a long and narrow piece of metal or rock. Jake kicked it, but it didn't budge. He already had an idea of what it could be, though, and pride swelled in his chest that others, including Knight, had missed what he'd found after just minutes down here. It could only be a hinge. A hinge meant a door, and a door meant a room where Elliot could be staying, without permission. Jake sneered at the thought of anyone willingly living in a dark, damp cellar right under a room with 3 corpses. But Elliot was a weirdo, and a fan of a serial killer, for fuck's sake. It would surely not be beneath him to shiver with glee at what normal people would run away from, screaming. Jake shoved away the armchair, along with the long dead lady, and peeled the carpet off the floor as if it were a layer of skin.